On May 25th, 1977, the first Star Wars movie was released to the public. Little did we know that it would become a phenomenon, drawing millions and millions of fans into the world of Star Wars. Fast forward 48 years, we have had rides, whole entire worlds, and even a hotel, all dedicated to this amazing franchise. But where did this all start? What happened along the way? And what is its future inside Disney?
I hope you're all ready for an epic journey through time as we tackle the full history of Star Wars in Disney's parks.
I've seen Star Wars about a dozen times.
I've visto Star Wars 16 volte.
17 times.
Star Wars?
Our story begins when Disney saw how successful and popular Star Wars was. But instead of asking to work with George Lucas at first, they tried to essentially make their own Star Wars universe. It seems pretty on brand for Disney, honestly.
In 1979, they released The Black Hole to theaters. Disney was so excited about this film that they even planned an attraction to be inside their parks that was basically a choose-your-own-adventure style. They were convinced that this movie would be a hit, just like Star Wars.
They were wrong.
With such terrible ratings, the idea for this black hole attraction, well, it was sucked into its own black hole.
It wasn't until years later, in 1986, that Disney would try again. This time it was a 17-minute 3D show in the Disneyland Tomorrowland's Magic Eye Theater. The show was entitled Captain EO, starring the one, the only, Michael Jackson.
Good morning, Captain.
It looks like we tripped their intrusion alarm, sir.
Addy and Odie blew it. They got too close. We're going in.
Sir, the ship is in absolutely no condition to go into battle. And I thought we'd begin by cleaning up Hooter's bunk.
Rust bucket. Order!
The film told the story of Captain EO and his ragtag crew on his spaceship while they're on a secret mission to deliver a gift to the Supreme Leader, who lived on a world of rotting, twisted metal and steaming vents. Upon arriving on the planet, the crew was captured by the henchmen of the Supreme Leader and brought before her. She sentenced the crew to be turned into trash cans. Yeah, trash cans. And Captain EO to 100 years of torture in the deepest dungeon.
This show was so 80s. If you don't believe me, just look at the outfits and the dancing and you kind of know what time period it came from. What's funny is Disney did the right move and they actually collaborated with George Lucas on this project. He was the producer of this short film. What's funny is if you look at future projects in the Star Wars franchise, even more recently, you might see aliens that kind of take from this original attraction. Not only did they reuse the name the Supreme Leader in the sequel films, but Captain EO bears a striking resemblance to the main character Kid in the new series Skeleton Crew. Is it a coincidence? I don't know.
The show also came to Disney World in 1986, but in a pretty bizarre place. It was shown in the Journey into Imagination Pavilion at Epcot. I don't think that makes sense, but there was no Hollywood studios at the time, so I guess shoehorning the show into Figment's domain was just what happened.
Fans seemed to really like the show at the time, and it lasted in Disneyland until 1998, however, only lasting in Walt Disney World until 1994.
Although it did come back in 2010 to honor the death of Michael Jackson.
Collaborating with George Lucas went so well with Disney on the Captain EO project that they went ahead and made what is now known as a classic in the Disney parks.
Yes. On January 9th, 1987, we got Star Tours in Disneyland, a first-of-its-kind motion simulator ride set in the Star Wars universe, featuring an original story with RX-24, or Captain Rex, piloting a Starspeeder 3000. This grand opening was so epic, it lasted a whopping 60 hours. The park stayed open for 3 straight days, which is unheard of.
The opening of the ride featured characters portraying Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Chewbacca, C-3PO, R2-D2, and Darth Vader, accompanied by Imperial stormtroopers and several Ewoks. Then Disney CEO Michael Eisner and Star Wars creator George Lucas were on hand for the official ribbon cutting of the new Star Wars attraction.
Fun fact, Eisner and Lucas used a lightsaber at the ribbon cutting ceremony.
There was also this mini battle scene that played out with, of course, sabers and blasters, but what ensued was interesting. You see, when the Rebels won in the show, what can only be described as a space ballet ensued. This included the main characters Han, Luke, and Leia, which well, it was an odd choice for Disney. Let's just say that. But props to them for being different. Michael Eisner made a lot of different decisions.
Due to how popular Star Tours was among fans, it opened along with MGM Studios, or Hollywood Studios,
and Tokyo in 1989, and Disneyland Paris in 1992.
Disney and George Lucas were working so well together that it was around this time that they were planning on building a new land in Disneyland. Lucasport would have gone in with where Tomorrowland is. It would all be inside this crystal-like building.
Inside you would have attractions like the extraterrestrial encounter, which was later realized in Magic Kingdom for a short period.
There would have also been a Star Wars roller coaster where guests could choose how intense they wanted their ride to be. The ride would have begun in Dagobah, where Yoda and Obi-Wan would have levitated your ride vehicle before launching you on your way. You'd encounter stormtroopers, seen AT-ATs, and a battle between Darth Vader and the Emperor, and even escape the destruction of the Death Star.
I gotta say, this ride concept just sounded insane, and honestly really ambitious, especially for the time. But I almost guarantee you, if this attraction existed today, I don't care what other technology exists around the park today, this would reign supreme. It probably would need some updates by now, but this would reign supreme.
And actually, some of the ride concepts were later used in Star Tours updates.
Unfortunately, this was way too ambitious, especially for Disneyland. There just wasn't enough space, and like we said earlier, just not enough budget. What they wanted to do here was amazing, but it just couldn't be afforded at the time. So this project got shelved indefinitely.
Now, the next thing to come to the parks were Star Wars weekends. These weekends started in 1997, strictly on weekends in May and June. What's so notable about these events is that the cast and crew from the Star Wars franchise would show up during these events, and you could meet them.
The fact that people were able to meet Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill, especially back then during their primes, wow. What a time to be a Star Wars fan.
And they had these epic shows each night on these big stages. I've only seen pictures, but from the looks of them, it looks like they went all out for these shows.
We're not even talking about all the rare characters that you had a chance to meet during these events. I'm talking Tusken Raiders, Asajj Ventress, Jawas, and of course, even Chip and Dale in Ewok costumes. I mean, come on.
I am livid about the Chip and Dale Ewoks. I feel conned out of life that I did not get to experience this.
The fact that you could meet all these rare and obscure characters is just incredible, and I'm so sad that we never got a chance to do these events.
These events weren't originally annual, and no one's exactly sure why that is. The event didn't make a reappearance until 2000. But why Disney didn't have one the year prior when The Phantom Menace came out is a mystery. It feels like a missed opportunity for Lucasfilm to promote and for Disney to sell more tickets in their parks. But that's just me. The event returned the following year, skipped over 2002, and then ran annually from 2003 to 2015.
Something else noteworthy about these events is that it introduced the first rendition of Jedi training in the year 2000. Based on teachings and practices of the Jedi Knights, the experience depended heavily on audience participation, focusing on children. Each participant is given a training lightsaber and Jedi robes and taught a routine set of sword fighting moves. Now, I never got to experience this as a kid, probably because my parents tried to talk me into it and I was too shy. But regardless, I'm disappointed now. But after seeing videos over the years of the different renditions and the crazy experiences like Darth Vader getting attacked by a child that was a little too strong with the Force, maybe it's a good thing that this doesn't exist.
Disney brought it to Disneyland as a permanent attraction on October 1st, 2006, and then Hollywood Studios on October 9th, 2007, and both lasted until 2015. It also found its way to Disneyland Paris for a short while from 2015 to 2017.
Now let's return to the topic of Star Tours, because in the year 2011, we got the next rendition and update of this attraction entitled Star Tours: The Adventure Continues. It now had updated ride vehicles, new high-def video and screens, improved motion simulators, and a few new special effects and audio animatronics. That's what's great about this ride system and why Disney, and let's face it, Universal, is so tied to motion simulators. They're cost-effective and can be updated at any time, and this is a perfect instance of that.
Captain Rex was moved to the ride queue, where he is acting as a luggage caretaker, and Star Tours was now being piloted by an unwilling C-3PO.
And what else was new was the fact that no two adventures on Star Tours would be the same. There were multiple different scenarios that would happen anytime you would go on this attraction. I think this probably bothers some Star Tours fans, but if you just accept how unhinged it can be, going from, I don't know, the fight on Endor during episode 5 to all of a sudden you're blasting off and and you're on the moons of Naboo shooting droids and helping Anakin blow up the Trade Federation ship. Yeah, it's crazy. I didn't know Star Tours could travel in time, too.
This was also when they introduced the interactive element, the Rebel Spy. One guest would be picked out during the ride experience as being a Rebel Spy, and their picture shows up on screen. I've actually been the Rebel Spy before. I wear it like a badge of honor.
And then the announcement that surprised no one, or may have surprised some. After months of negotiations, on October 30th, 2012, Disney finally agreed to buy the rights to Lucasfilm and all of the rights to Star Wars for a total of $4.5 billion. That is a lot of money. This, of course, meant that Disney had the green light to do basically whatever they wanted with the franchise. And this is where things really started to speed up, for better or for worse. Because at the time, especially with the movies, people wanted more Star Wars. They craved more Star Wars. I remember thinking to myself, wow, this is amazing. We are finally getting more Star Wars movies. Yeah, that didn't really go according to plan. Going back to Jedi training, Disney would now introduce the new rendition of this experience at both Disneyland and Hollywood Studios on December 2015, with the brand new name Trials of the Temple.
This version of the show drew inspiration from new canon works such as Star Wars Rebels and The Force Awakens. This included a new set and premise inspired by the Rebels episode Path of the Jedi, and the Lothal Jedi Temple featured within the episode, as well as the addition of the Seventh Sister and later Kylo Ren.
Okay, moving on, we have to talk about the Run Disney events that were Star Wars themed. Now, these started in 2015 with the Star Wars Half Marathon, The Light Side, at the Disneyland Resort in California. This event featured a 5K, 10K, half marathon, and of course, the Rebel Challenge, completing both the 10K and half marathon. From there was a couple more events over the years. The next year in 2016, we saw another half marathon called The Dark Side in Walt Disney World, basically being very similar with a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, and instead of the Light Side, the Dark Side Challenge. Again, doing both the 10K and the half marathon. Now, this year in 2016, the Light Side and the Dark Side were happening at the same time. So they also offered something called the Kessel Run Challenge medal for those that completed the Light Side and the Dark Side Challenge, meaning you went to Disneyland and Disney World and did both races. From what we can see, the Light Side and the Dark Side events were held for at least a couple years before it was rebranded in 2019 to the Rival Run Weekend. Now, of course, we know what happened in 2020, and it looks like they were going to do another Rival Run Weekend, but that was canceled due to obvious reasons. The last Star Wars Run Disney race that ever happened since the closures in 2020 was a virtual event. I don't know about you, but doing a virtual event instead of having the energy of being in the parks and running with all the other athletes just does not sound nearly as fun. From what we've seen about these events, it included the typical Run Disney themed entertainment, character meet and greets, and of course some awesome medals. Run Disney is an absolute blast, and these events sounded amazing. Honestly, I'm just sad that they're not bringing back these Star Wars weekends, because I feel like they would do really well. 2015 also saw a new months-long event that would first come to Disneyland, but then make its way over to Hollywood Studios, Season of the Force. It was so successful that in 2016 we saw it pop up in Tokyo Disneyland and Hong Kong Disneyland, and in 2017 Shanghai Disneyland.
As we've already gone over, the updated Jedi training experience was part of this event. In fact, it was during this first year of the event that this experience was introduced.
And then there was the Hyperspace Mountain overlay that was introduced during Season of the Force. Instead of the regular Space Mountain where you basically were thrust into space, this had more of a theme. You were now thrown into the middle of an X-Wing battle.
And over in Disneyland Paris, Hyperspace Mountain is a permanent overlay which I'm pretty jealous.
We still have yet to experience this because we don't get to go to Disneyland as much, and it doesn't come to Disney World. I wonder why not. Somebody at Disney make that happen. I'm not joking. Needless to say, going to the Season of the Force in Disneyland is on our bucket list, but just going to ride Hyperspace Mountain, well, that's just not going to happen, but it is on our bucket list. This event also introduced Star Wars Launch Bay meet and greets, where you can meet your favorite characters with some amazing photo ops.
This attraction replaced what used to be Innoventions in Disneyland and replaced the magic of Disney Animation and Hollywood Studios.
With this event, we got a new scene introduced within Star Tours that tied into The Force Awakens. This makes sense since that movie was released later that year. Honestly, like I said before, Disney can release new scenes to Star Tours at any time, and I think that's what they should do or plan to do. I don't think anybody would mind.
Then, of course, there were special nighttime shows, such as Star Wars, a galactic spectacular that was specifically in Hollywood studios. The show was, of course, based on the Star Wars film series and featured fireworks, projection mapping, fire, lasers, fog effects, and searchlights.
During the show, Star Wars imagery is projected on the park's Chinese theater facade and surrounding buildings around the park's hub on Hollywood Boulevard. The show debuted on June 17, 2016, replacing the park's similarly themed display, Symphony in the Stars, a Galactic Spectacular.
Star Wars: A Galaxy Far, Far Away was a stage show. It began with a screen rising from the middle of the stage in front of the Chinese theater. Clips play from the first 7 Star Wars movies, and then characters begin to come on stage, starting with C-3PO and R2-D2.
The show continued with more clips and characters including Chewbacca, Darth Maul, Darth Vader, Boba Fett, Stormtroopers, Kylo Ren, Rey, and BB-8. They would rise from the stage to create a fantastic grouping of Star Wars character with pyro booming from the stage.
Before we had stormtroopers patrolling the streets of Batuu, we had the Stormtrooper Procession. Captain Phasma would lead a procession of stormtroopers through Animation Courtyard. They march in step around the stage, minus Phasma, and 2 of the stormtroopers who make their way onto the stage in front of a First Order banner. The rest of the procession lines up in an area blocked off and awaits orders.
Phasma gives the troop orders and puts them through a pacing routine, finding the stormtroopers acceptable. Phasma then joins the troops, gives them a once-over, and leads them back towards Star Wars Launch Bay, where people could interact and take pictures of them. Fun fact, that is the first Kevin Heimbach video I ever saw, and it happens to be the most popular one on his channel. It's pretty old, though. It's a throwback. It's a weird thing to say. We love you, Kevin.
Path of the Jedi was a small thing compared with the rest of the Season of the Force, but it should be mentioned. It was a 10-minute video showcasing the events leading up to The Force Awakens. It feels like this was just smart advertising to entice people to watch the new film, but it was by no means a beloved attraction and only lasted until 2018.
Of course, nowadays, if you're looking for a special event in Disney World, well, you're out of luck, like I just said. Somebody bring it to Disney World. But if you are a true Star Wars fan and you really want to go check it out, these things are all alive and well in Disneyland.
To hype up the release of Rogue One, Disney had a celebration in Epcot.
They had this epic mini show where the Death Star was projected onto Spaceship Earth and would shoot out green lasers, just like you would see in the movies. Honestly, this looked amazing.
I will say that park fans had mixed reactions to this choice. I did read that people felt it was a bit dark to have an ominous weapon like the Death Star portrayed in Epcot of all places, where Epcot is based on community and coming together and not about warfare, which I agree with to a certain extent. I mean, where else are you going to be able to portray the Death Star? I mean, Epcot was a smart choice for that.
Moving on to 2017, where Disney brought us Galactic Nights. These were theme nights in Hollywood studios that only lasted 2 years. These nights were meant to replicate a movie premiere in a theme park setting. There was themed food, a red carpet photo op, and a panel where they discussed their upcoming land, Galaxy's Edge.
In 2017, the focus was on their latest Star Wars film, The Last Jedi, and then the following year, the focus was on Solo, A Star Wars Story. It seemed like this short-lived event was another way for Disney to promote their films and get excited for future projects.
Something I'd like to highlight specifically about the event, they had this amazing hyperspace projection on the Tower of Terror. Honestly, this event served its purpose to promote the latest movies that were coming out, but it makes sense they went away once the movies stopped coming out. Honestly, it was just a promotion for the movies. Hollywood Studios likes to do that.
The theme of Star Wars events continues in 2018 when Disneyland started their After Dark Star Wars Nights. Much like events that came before, the theming is top tier. There's unique entertainment and of course character encounters that you may not see normally in the park.
When Disneyland was starting out with Star Wars Nights, they originally started with it just being a one-night thing. But because of how fast tickets were selling out and how successful that first night was, they ended up adding on another night the following day.
And as of this year, there were plenty of dates you could go between April 8th and May 6th. Of course, if you're watching this, you're basically out of luck. But here's to next year.
2019 was a big year for Disney's Star Wars journey. Galaxy's Edge, the immersive land of Batuu, came to both Disneyland and Disney World.
If you've been to Disney World or Disneyland, you know how otherworldly this land is. And we think it's truly spectacular what the Imagineers have pulled off. You have Oga's Cantina, where not only the atmosphere is amazing, you can get otherworldly drinks like the Fuzzy Tauntaun or a Carbon Freeze. Honestly, the culinary team did an amazing job making drinks not only tasted good to our earthly taste buds, but they don't seem human. They really seem like they're straight out of the Star Wars movie, including the blue drink that looks like the thing that Obi-Wan drinks in Episode 2, although I somehow haven't had that yet. It's on my list.
The Cantina is much more than just a place for cool drinks. You feel like you're in a Star Wars movie. You're just waiting for a blaster battle to break out or something. But the problem is, it never happens. But more on that later. And you've also got DJ Rex mixing some tunes. First he was a tour guide in Star Tours and now he's a DJ? That's a talented droid right there.
Sometimes stormtroopers can even enter the cantina and interrogate the patrons inside. This is a really nice touch because it really adds to the level of immersion.
Staying on the topic of food and drinks, there's a good amount of quick services in the land.
You'll even have the chance to try the infamous blue milk from Episode 4 or the green milk from, the one we don't talk about.
Yeah, I'm good. The blue milk is an acquired taste.
Yeah, I'm with you, Amberlyn. Disney, I don't know what happened with this. I know what they were trying to do. It's not butterbeer. It can never be butterbeer. I think there was a little bit of disconnect there when the Imagineers were creating this universe and they wanted an iconic drink, so they picked blue milk. Move on and make a better drink. But it is plant-based, so all the people that don't drink actual dairy, there you go. Have at it. Honestly, our favorite as far as food in the land goes is Ronto Roasters. The vibes in there and the food, like the Ronto morning wrap specifically, is the perfect way to start your day. Don't rope drop Rise of Resistance, don't rope drop Millennium Falcon, rope drop Ronto Roasters.
I enjoy the atmosphere there. There's a droid rotating roasted meat on a stick, and the sounds there add to the vibe.
As you walk through the land, you'll see familiar ships like an X-Wing and droids too, and you have the ability through the Disney Play app to even hack these things to make them make noises or have steam even come out of the Millennium Falcon, which I think is really cool.
There's also the chance to play bounty hunter in the land, completing tasks, basically going on your own Star Wars adventure. But make sure to bring your magic band, because that's how you play.
In the marketplace, they've created really unique ways to shop that make you immersed in the Star Wars universe. I really feel like a lot of people just walk by this, because we did too. You walk through, you're on your way to Ronto Roasters, you're on your way to one of the attractions, but next time you're in here, take a look. There's a lot of Easter eggs, there's a lot of hidden things, and each little shop has its own unique items. They're not just repeats of each other. You can even play Sabacc with a cast member, which I think is really cool.
Interestingly, when the land first opened up, the only ride that was operational was Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. Of course, the interactive ride on the beloved Millennium Falcon is what's most noteworthy. The queue was so thoughtfully put together. There's so many details to make it look like you're really in a makeshift boarding area for a spaceship. Although this ride can be fun, it's just another motion simulator. And unless you're the pilots in the front, you're just pressing buttons. But the Hondo animatronic in the queue is amazing.
Rise of Resistance was the other attraction in the land, and this was the e-ticket attraction. But it didn't open on day one, and this was true of Disneyland and Disney World. This was due to varying issues depending on who you ask.
There were technical difficulties due to this being one of Disney's most technologically advanced experiences, and in Disneyland, this was also the case, but we've also heard that there was issues due to earthquakes.
Sounds like a convenient excuse to cover up their technical issues, but who am I to say? I'm not an Imagineer. Down to this day, Rise of the Resistance is still an amazing technologically advanced ride. Yet, it is constantly plagued with issues, and it has and always faces major downtime in a theme park day. In fact, there's some elements that prematurely break down all the time, but they do come up from time to time, regardless of what you hear from some other content creators. What has recently come back is basically the last effect that was broken for a long period of time, the cannons. When we rode this attraction for the first time, the cannons worked, and they're an amazing storytelling element because you're dodging the cannon fire coming forward, but when they don't work, you're just going back and forth for no reason. It's kind of silly. But they finally work in Disneyland. Still waiting on the fix in Disney World, though.
When it finally did open in December of 2019, it quickly shot up to the top of people's best ride list. From the storytelling to the special effects to the thrill of feeling like you're in your own Star Wars film. This was blowing the minds of the public. Overall, this land was a great addition to the parks.
But, and this may be a hot take, or maybe not, it could have been much better.
When Disney announced that Galaxy's Edge was coming, they made some statements that never came to fruition.
Well, we're bringing Star Wars to life in a big way, and I mean really big. We're creating a jaw-dropping new world that represents our largest single-themed land expansion ever.
Yes, there would be stormtroopers walking around, and we'd catch glimpses of characters here and there, but something else that they said is that there would be different alien species walking around the land freely.
To make you really feel you were someplace else, on a different world.
The land will be real and authentic, and every encounter will bring more of the Star Wars story to life. This new 14-acre land will be occupied by many inhabitants, humanoids, aliens, and droids. All the diversity you might expect to find at a remote port. Every store and restaurant will be operated by local inhabitants, making each experience deeply immersive.
The only aliens that we've seen in the parks are well-known characters like Chewbacca, Grogu, and Ahsoka. But Disney had promised more than that, and it was never followed through on.
And when they were planning for the land in Florida, it was supposed to be where Echo Lake and the Indiana Jones stunt show are. This would have made sense at the time because it would connect to Star Tours and the stage where a Jedi Temple show was set up.
There was also talk of animatronic alien bartenders in Oga's Cantina, and another animatronic alien in a fish tank at the back of the cantina who was supposed to be the owner.
There was concept art of a possible bounty hunter chase ride or a speeder bike ride, but these weren't exactly solid ideas, more like Imagineers brainstorming.
What's hard about these Imagineer brainstorming ideas is Disney likes to share so much with us, especially in the early stages. And the concept art always looks so spectacular and over the top and amazing. And it's really just the Imagineers doing their job, going to work, being creative people. Yet when it comes down to it, this is not what we get. And that's true with Galaxy's Edge. So fans get their hopes up at D23 and different events when they see this amazing concept art and Disney saying, here you go, here's what we're working on, when it's just concept art. It seems like Disney unintentionally shoots themselves in the foot when they can't live up to the concept art. And it's understandable. I mean, the concept art that they come up with is truly incredible. And if they actually pulled off what they drew and came up with, I mean, it would blow our minds, right? Even more than what they actually come out with. But it just goes to show they have some amazing artists that work there. Like, what they draw, how does that come out of somebody's brain? It's crazy.
If we're talking more solid ideas that were actively being worked on, there was supposed to be a third ride in the land that would have people riding on the back of a bantha-like creature through the land. It was unfortunately cut due to budget.
Disney considered having a live dinner show inside Jabba's palace, and Oga's Cantina would just be the bar inside of the restaurant. But this was just another idea they were throwing around at the time.
Not to mention that before they even announced Galaxy's Edge, they had full intentions of making a Tatooine land.
Yes, we were going to get the iconic planet from the original trilogy. Instead of Oga's Cantina, we'd get Mos Eisley Cantina, where we'd see animatronics and possibly even live musical performances like Figure Dawn and the Modal Nodes.
And as we mentioned earlier, one of the rides mentioned was the speeder bike ride. This was rumored to be a high-speed speeder bike coaster or dark ride themed around zooming through the Dune Sea or Beggar's Canyon.
But Disney pivoted. And it's all due to one person.
Yes, Kathleen Kennedy, the president of Star Wars, got in the ear of Disney CEO Bob Iger. She basically said, why freeze Star Wars in time when we can make a whole new land based in the future? Why make the older generation of fans happy when we could appeal to a whole new generation?
And that's why you'll never see older characters like Darth Vader or Han Solo walking around Galaxy's Edge. Disney wanted to now focus on their newest characters from the latest trilogy to appeal to the newer fans. Which, if you ask us, was a mistake. And a mistake they are trying to now fix. This year, for the Season of the Force, you can meet Luke Skywalker. When this land originally opened, they said it was time-locked. It was supposed to take place between Episode 8 and Episode 9, and they were not going to deviate from that timeline. Yet, what did we see? Fans didn't want that. They said, who cares about a timeline when you're supposed to be making a land that was timeless, that was ancient and super old? Why are we stuck in one specific time? I mean, I'm even questioning that myself. And obviously, we've seen different characters come in over the years from different timelines. Boba Fett, Ahsoka, different droids, R2-D2, and the Mandalorian and Grogu, but guess what? They're only in Disneyland. Well, at least some of them. And now, of course, this year, we saw Luke Skywalker come to the parks. And Disney's adding things like roaming droids and all kinds of stuff. I'm scratching my head. Why couldn't they have just done this from the beginning and pleased the fans? There's a lot of different things that they lost out on, but I feel like adding in characters from the beginning was a pretty simple mistake. As much as Kylo Ren is cool and the Stormtroopers are awesome, it doesn't have enough. But as we know, with budget cuts, entertainment is the first thing to go. And speaking of cutting entertainment, there's multiple places in the land that if you look at those areas, you know entertainment was supposed to go there. Think about where you sometimes will see the Rebel spy hiding out on that platform above the speeder vehicles, right next to where you tap in for the bounty hunter experience. There's obviously something that was supposed to go there, and it's rumored that's where the loading platform was supposed to be for that third ride. And as you look around the land, there's certain platforms that you just know there's supposed to be roaming characters standing above, kind of talking to people. And when Galaxy's Edge opened for the first time, we saw a flying X-Wing. Where did that go? Because that would have been amazing. And we were promised flying vehicles overhead. We can hear them, but we can't see them. Now, it may sound like I'm being a little aggressive here and upset and more than I normally do, but honestly, after reading all this and preparing for this video, Amberlynn and I are both extremely disappointed in what this land could have been. Now we understand why everybody else that has been following this since the beginning, since before it opened, why they're disappointed too. And now, like we said in the beginning, we love Galaxy's Edge. It's amazing. We love spending all day in that land, but it's missing some key elements.
Just think about this for a second. Over in Universal and Wizarding World, you have the iconic castle and the shops that you see in the movies. You get to ride on the Hogwarts Express.
Those are iconic things that people love from those movies. Are you telling me that if Universal decided to do something completely new, they didn't do Hogsmeade, they didn't do Diagon Alley, classic thing from the movies, and they went into left field and created a brand new area, people wouldn't have been upset and asked why they weren't just recreating Hogsmeade or Diagon Alley? Are you really saying that? Because I don't think so. I think that if Universal had done that out the gate, there would have been riots in the streets, right? Because that's not what people wanted. Now, of course, we're getting new lands like Ministry of Magic and Epic Universe, and if Universal wanted to, they can continue to create more Wizarding World lands, and I don't think people would riot too much. But those are the lands that people loved. Those are the things that people wanted to see. So again, as much as we love Galaxy's Edge, I think Kathleen Kennedy's decision here was a real misfire. And Tatooine would have been incredible.
Not to mention that if you look at an aerial image of Galaxy's Edge, you can see that there's space for expansion. Perhaps room for a sit-down restaurant like the one that they were planning for Jabba's palace?
Or a brand new attraction. We need the speeder bike ride to come to life. Honestly, even if they recreated Flight of Passage with a speeder bike, I wouldn't be mad.
Okay. We could for sure rant about Galaxy's Edge versus Tatooine all day, but we really need to move on to Disney's Star Wars cruise trips.
On board the Disney Wish cruise ship, they have a Star Wars themed bar specifically made for adults called Hyperspace Lounge. This venue offers a spacefaring experience, allowing patrons to sip on themed cocktails while viewing panoramic windows that showcase iconic locations from the Star Wars galaxy, such as Tatooine, Mustafar, and Coruscant.
Guests order their drinks on a tablet, and the tablet actually tells you about the planets you'll see outside your viewing window.
Something that's completely insane about this bar, and if I had the money, I probably couldn't help myself. You can buy a drink for, get ready, $5,000. If you buy this drink, you get a bunch of benefits, and I would really hope so for that price. This changes the course of your cruise experience. You get a bunch of different swag gifts and keepsakes, and you also get the Skywalker Ranch experience. This means you have the opportunity to tour the private estate of George Lucas that's typically closed to the public. It's crazy that they have this drink selection on a cruise ship and not in the parks. Does that seem random to you?
On Disney's Wish and the Treasure, there's a kids area themed to Star Wars called the Cargo Bay. Children assume the role of creature handlers aboard a starfighter, transporting exotic beings across the galaxy. Using augmented reality-enabled data pads, they can scan each creature's tag to access information and embark on a series of special assignments. This hands-on experience allows young guests to feed, care for, and study creatures from various Star Wars locales. They might even encounter characters here, like Rey or Chewbacca.
Then there were the Star Wars Day at Sea events, which were a one-day occasion on select 7-day cruises aboard the Disney Fantasy. There were meet and greets with characters, trivia contests, and animation classes.
There were also scavenger hunts like Porgs on Board and BB-8 droid races. Kids could also train to be a Jedi and enjoy Star Wars-themed crafts in the Oceaneer Club.
Menus were reimagined with Star Wars-inspired dishes, and dining rooms were adorned with themed decor. Servers often dressed in costumes, and special treats like Death Star shortbread cookies and Han Solo and Carbonite sundaes were available.
The evening culminated with Summon the Force, a deck show featuring Star Wars characters throughout the saga. It was then followed by a fireworks display set to the iconic score by John Williams.
As of 2022, this particular event has been discontinued, but fans are hopeful that someday we will see it return.
In March 2022, Disney opened the Galactic Starcruiser Hotel 2-night experience. This was unlike any hotel Disney had opened before. Any other hotel has the theming, the beautiful rooms, and pools, but this was on its own level of hotel experience.
Yes. This was so much more than a place for guests to just eat and sleep. Guests would check in and for 2 days live their own Star Wars adventure. Think roleplay/improv. You were encouraged to dress up and create your own character as you interact with cast members who were literally dressed up as aliens.
It was pitched as the next stage in Disney making their projects as immersive and transportive as possible. It basically was a land cruise, a cruise where you don't go on a cruise ship, a land cruise. You don't go anywhere. You go in a big giant concrete box for 3 days and you don't get to come out.
Now, if you remember, when Disney was marketing for this experience, it was rough. The ads and commercials they put out didn't do a great job of showcasing what the experience would really be like, and so fans were confused as to what their visit would look like. Nothing like this had ever been done, and it felt like Disney was being a bit vague, like they didn't know how to advertise for this experience.
Talking about the hotel itself, when guests arrived at the hotel, they entered into a launch pod, which was essentially just a themed elevator, and it would bring you up to the second floor where check-in was. Once you're in the launch pod, you're leaving Earth and being brought onto the ship. While this was a cool and creative way to lock in the immersion,
an elevator, no matter how big it is not a big space.
Especially when the hotel first opened up, guests would be chomping at the bit to get inside and see what it was like. So it makes sense that there would be a big line outside the launch pod to get up to the second floor. I mean, into space, of course.
Once you entered the ship, you were greeted by cast members, and they would bring you to your room and explain how things on the ship work.
The interior was made to look like a real spaceship. Even the windows were simulated to look like you were in deep space. There were droids roaming about in holographic images, displaying things like an ad for Gaia, who was a singer for the dinner entertainment.
Off the lobby, there was a gift shop with in-universe themed things such as costumes and other small trinkets.
So if you didn't come in costume and you looked around and you saw everybody else in uniform, have no fear. The gift shop is here. Yes, if you didn't pay enough money, you could pay an exorbitant amount more and dress up. Not saying I wouldn't do that, but
Like in any luxury resort, they had the lounge, which was on the other side of the atrium.
Then there were other special rooms that were used for story moments, such as the lightsaber training area, the climate simulator, which was basically like a greenhouse for plants, a brig for any insubordinates, and then there were 2 locked off areas, the engineering room and the cargo hold.
You can eventually go into these locked off areas, but you need to progress in your story first. Basically like how you level up in a video game.
let's move on to the rooms here.
What seemed to be the main theme when people were describing the basic rooms was that they were small, which I guess makes sense. It adds to the whole futuristic sleeping in a pod-like feel. But this whole experience was meant to focus more on being out and about rather than the rooms you were slept in. You have a window that looks out into space and all the walls and lighting are made to feel like a spaceship. Even the TV doesn't look like a TV, more like a futuristic monitor screen.
Each room also had a terminal where you could check out the map of the ship and talk to an AI droid about your upcoming journey. Basically like a Hey Disney, but make it Star Wars themed.
But enough about the rooms. What were the characters like? Because there were some main characters that would follow you as you progressed through your story experience.
Captain Keevan was a Resistance ally working undercover. She had blue skin, colored contact lenses, and short, shiny brownish hair. Again, so cool that the cast members weren't just playing human roles.
Lenka Mock was the cruise director, the second in command to Captain Keevan. Her story isn't as clear. It was speculation that she started off neutral to the conflicts, but then became a Resistance ally.
Lieutenant Croy was a First Order officer investigating the ship for any Resistance activity. He would appear with stormtroopers in tow to interrogate guests.
Everyone's favorite was definitely Sammy the engineer.
He was a quirky new guy to his job and starts his story as a neutral character and a coward. He even gets peer pressured into helping the First Order, and then he feels guilty about it. He ultimately becomes a Resistance hero.
He was one of people's absolute favorites to interact with.
SK-620 was the astromech on board, and they were secretly sympathetic to the Resistance. He was a free-roaming droid that you could walk up to and talk with.
We already mentioned Gaia, the Twi'lek pop singer on the ship.
But what was really happening was that her performance was all a distraction to steal an artifact that the ship had on display. The ship is from the Old Republic times, and in the lobby they had a big gem which is sacred to the Twi'lek people, but was stolen by colonizers a long time ago.
So Gaia wanted to, of course, liberate it and bring it back to her home planet for her people where it belongs.
Wraith Cole was Gaia's manager, and was in on Gaia's plan to steal the gem, and guests could partake in helping with the heist.
Sandro is Gaia's Togruto guitarist. He's the same species as Ahsoka Tano. He seemed like he was just there for vibes and for the music.
Owani was a Rhodian, same as Greedo from the films. The cast member wore an animatronic alien mask with pre-recorded lines in an alien language. She was Gaia's backup singer and played an alien instrument of some kind. I've seen footage of this Rhodian animatronic mask, and it's so cool. When she speaks and when she sings, the mouth moves, the eyes blink. Like, this was so cool.
Then there was the Saja. They were the members of a group from the planet Jeddah who dedicated their lives to studying the secrets of the Force and teaching them to those who would learn them. You'd be able to interact with them in the lightsaber training area.
Chewbacca was also on the ship, but there wasn't really a storyline for him. Most of the time, guests were just trying to help him hide from the First Order when they were interrogating guests.
And of course, we got Rey. She had to make an appearance on the ship. She was shoehorned into one of the quests involving the search for a holocron.
And when you get Rey, you also get Kylo Ren. So he shows up all ominous and scary, and there's a story moment where he battles Rey.
Now we have to talk about how this choose-your-own-adventure type of experience even worked. You could choose from being a First Order sympathizer, a Resistance spy, becoming a smuggler, and there was even some Jedi side quests as well.
And this is where the app comes in. Yes, you interact with the characters in person, but you also get to decide what your next step is within the app. The app works along with the actor's schedule, so say you wanted to help the Resistance. You might get a text from the captain to meet at such and such a time in a secret location.
So in using the app and interacting with the characters, you build up loyalty points that the app is tracking. At the end of day 1, the app analyzed your scores and it would determine what your story would be like the next day.
There were a lot of moving parts to this, and unfortunately, it didn't always work smoothly. Sometimes the app would glitch and not work when trying to complete missions or triggering a certain storyline.
Galaxy's Edge was worked into the storyline on day 2.
You'd get texts from certain characters telling you to go on the rides to complete a special mission. Like on Smuggler's Run, Hondo Inaka would text you afterwards and tell you he'd deliver the coaxium up to the starcruiser.
And when you stayed at the Starcruiser Hotel, you got access to the rides with lightning lanes, which With the amount you paid, I would hope so.
In order to travel from the starcruiser to the park, they had themed transport vehicles. The inside looked like a simple sci-fi shuttle, with no windows, and special sound effects would go off when the vehicle started moving.
Of course, people after the fact would complain about the shuttle that you take to and from Batuu, and because in all reality, once they saw the outside footage of it, it was a box truck.
Honestly, did people truly expect that they would be traveling in a real spacecraft? I think that's a ridiculous thing to hope for.
Going back to the Starcruiser Hotel, there were little attractions like mini games that you could participate in. One of them being what we've already talked about, lightsaber training with the Saja.
Honestly, it's weird that you were being taught by this group of people that no one has ever heard of before and not Jedi Masters. Like, why make that make sense?
There's a whole comic that ties into the backstory of the Saja and the ship when it was new, called Halcyon Legacy. So I guess if you want the full story on why the Saja get to teach you how to use a lightsaber and be one with the Force, you have to read it to get the answer.
Anyway, the Saja go through how to wield your lightsaber, and then you get to train with this machine that shoots off a fake laser beam. Kind of reminiscent to how Luke trained on the Millennium Falcon, but this one is stuck in the wall, and obviously the laser isn't going to zap you. Instead, you have to guide your saber to the laser as quickly as you can.
And since there was a limited amount of lightsaber wielding spots, they introduced these laser blocking shields that you could use while you were waiting to use your lightsaber.
The background behind these shields is that they were made of kyber crystals, but could only block lasers.
Guests found this particular experience to be underwhelming and pretty boring, which is disappointing. When you're spending a large sum of money like that, you expect all the experiences to be worth it. And from the sound of it, this wasn't.
There was also training on the ship bridge. You'd approach a small screen with toggles and buttons and work together to blast space trash away from the ship. Sometimes you get stuck in an asteroid field and sometimes get attacked by enemy ships.
One kid would be selected to hit the hyperdrive, launching the ship with the hyperdrive lever, which I think Disney thought sounded way more impressive than it actually was, because this is one of the only things that they advertised as being an experience.
Guests had the option to participate in smaller activities that had nothing to do with their ongoing story.
There was a mixology class with the bartender called Cantina Chronicles, where you got to learn about mixing drinks, and the barkeep would tell you lore about the ingredients and cool in-universe trivia. Which actually sounds pretty cool. I would most likely do this.
Of course, there was sabacc card game lessons, and you could play the game at the theme table that had this effect that made it look like you had holographic cards in front of you.
Now, I gotta admit, that's pretty cool. Of course, you can play sabacc, like we mentioned earlier, with a cast member in Galaxy's Edge, but this adds an extra layer. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty cool.
Now let's talk about food options. They had scheduled meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now breakfast and lunch were all you can eat buffet style. They also would leave out snacks in between meals, which were pretty basic things like yogurts, fruit cups, and goldfish crackers.
During meals, the waiters would come around for drink orders. You had the chance to try all kinds of bizarre beverages that were in-universe, but you also had the option to order Earth cocktails if you weren't feeling adventurous.
The way that they did the buffet for breakfast and lunch was very clean and orderly. Everything was already pre-portioned on square plates, and the portions were on the smaller side, so if you so desired, you had the opportunity to try everything.
The meal for dinner was more of a sit-down option, where you would order off the menu and the waiters would just bring it out to you. This, of course, was also the meal where you'd hear Gaia perform.
Honestly, there were mixed reactions to Gaia's performances.
Many were confused about why a lot of her songs were in English. While there were a couple songs that incorporated Huttese, most were just English in the lyrics. Not to mention that not all viewing areas were equal. Some views were blocked by support beams and saw absolutely nothing from where they were sitting.
There was an option to book the captain's table. This would seat you in the middle of the dining area so you'd get the best view of the dinner show. Certain characters would even sit down with you at the table and interact with you.
This whole concept of the hotel was great in theory, and when everything worked the way it was supposed to, guests really enjoyed their time there. Unfortunately, what guests were getting for the ludicrous price they were paying didn't add up.
People were paying at the low end $4,000 a person, and at the top of it, $12,000 or even more just for a 2-night experience.
Not to mention that Starcruiser was only built to accommodate 500 guests at a time. Not that we're justifying the price of the hotel stay, but other Disney hotels and resorts are built to accommodate way more guests. Not to mention when you're staying at the Starcruiser, you're also paying for basically a constant Broadway show.
So, if Disney wanted to make the same amount of money that they do from guest stays and on other properties, they decided they needed to hike the prices to make the same profit. In the end, this wasn't sustainable and people were just not able to pay the price.
And maybe Disney will learn from this, and if they ever do another themed hotel, maybe the pricing will be a little more reasonable. The Galactic Starcruiser closed only a year later because not enough people were booking a stay there. Not really surprising, because if you didn't have a huge chunk of change just lying around, you couldn't afford to stay here. I mean, let's be real here. You're paying the price equivalent of a full Disney vacation that only lasts 3 days.
What's so incredibly sad is the demise of this experience. Yes, it closed, but it sat empty for a couple years, and now, what is it being used for? Office space. Recently, we found out that this whole entire hotel would be office space for Imagineers. And now, if I was Imagineer, how hyped would I be to be able to work in the Star Wars hotel every day? But on the other hand, all of that work, all of that creativity, all of the storytelling, all just to be used for somebody to sit in an office? It just seems like a waste. And it was just a sad end to a unique hotel. It's office space. Like, it's office space. Like, come on.
And with that, we now arrive in the present time. We know that Disney is going to continue to incorporate Star Wars into their parks. It was recently announced that on May 22nd, 2026, we'd be getting a new version of Smuggler's Run. It's going to be an overlay with Mandalorian and Grogu, and hopefully that's not the only thing in the works.
Man, this has been a long one. And if I was to guess what the future of Star Wars would be, it's a mixed bag, right? Recently, we just had Star Wars Celebration, and there were some exciting announcements. But within the parks, who knows? We haven't really heard anything huge as far as expansions or anything. All we know is, of course, the Millennium Falcon overlay. And while that sounds cool, fans want more. What do Star Wars fans get in the near future? DLC and new characters. I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? And now in this video, we've been probably the most critical of Disney we ever have. But when you look at the facts, it's just unfortunate. But we'll end this on a positive note. Here's to hoping. Disney has the capability of doing some amazing things. And I have hopes that the Millennium Falcon overlay will be good. But Star Wars fans want more, and Disney needs to do more. So I think this is one of the few times where we'll end the future segment as a big I don't know, because there is a big I don't know. Anyways, this has been a labor of love because, of course, we love Star Wars and we miss all the things that used to be in the parks, mainly because we never got to experience them. Thank you for watching this video. It has been a blast to make. By the way, if you love Star Wars as much as we do, you might want to click that subscribe button, or we might have to send you off to Chewbacca and he can deal with you in any way he sees fit. Yeah, we have ties like that. Don't mess with us. Anyways, I've been Cal.
I've been Amber Lynn.
And this has been
The Adventure Gateway.